Victoria Hayes stood frozen on her front lawn, designer briefcase slipping from her fingers as her mind struggled to process the nightmare unfolding before her eyes. A 1967 Shelby Mustang, the midnight blue beauty her father had spent 3 years restoring before cancer took him, was engulfed in violent flames. Orange fire devoured the leather seats she remembered sitting in as a child. Black smoke twisted into the evening sky like dark serpents. The heat was so intense she could feel it from 20 feet away, making her skin prickle and her eyes water. But the flames weren't the worst part. The worst part was her husband, Marcus, standing motionless near the garage with his arms crossed, watching the destruction with an expression that made her blood run cold. Not panic, not horror. Something that looked disturbingly close to satisfaction. The flickering firelight danced across his face, and in that orange glow, Victoria saw a stranger wearing her husband's features. "Marcus!" Her voice came out broken, barely louder than a whisper. "What happened to the car?" He turned toward her slowly, and she caught it, just a flash before he rearranged his expression into something resembling concern. Was that smugness? And he actually looked pleased? "Victoria, thank God you're home," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. "I came outside and found it like this. Already called the fire department." As if choreographed, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Neighbors emerged from their homes like startled animals, phones raised, capturing her private tragedy for their social media feeds. The Johnsons rushed over offering blankets. Mrs. Patterson brought bottles of water nobody wanted. Everyone was moving, talking, surrounding them with useless sympathy and invasive questions. But Victoria couldn't stop staring at Marcus's hands. They were clean. Perfectly, impossibly clean. If he'd really just discovered a car fire and tried to help, wouldn't there be soot? Ash? Some evidence of effort? His expensive white shirt was pristine. His Italian leather shoes showed no scuff marks from running. Fire trucks arrived with deafening sirens, followed by 2 police cruisers. Firefighters moved with practiced efficiency, aiming powerful streams of water at what remained of her father's masterpiece. The hissing sound of water meeting fire filled the air, creating ghostly clouds of steam. Victoria watched her past being simultaneously drowned and destroyed. Every memory of Sunday drives with her father. Every lesson he taught her while they worked on that engine together. All of it reduced to twisted metal and ash. "Ma'am, I'm Captain Rodriguez." A firefighter approached, his face serious beneath his helmet. "Is this your vehicle?" "Yes, was my father's. He restored it himself before he died." Her voice cracked on the last word, betraying emotions she'd been trying to contain. "I'm very sorry for your loss. Do you know how this might have started? Any mechanical issues? Had you driven it recently?" "I've been in Boston for 4 days on business. The car was fine when I left. Parked in the driveway, alarm set, everything locked." Captain Rodriguez nodded slowly, his eyes moving from the burned car to Marcus and back again. "We'll need to investigate thoroughly. The burn pattern looks unusual. We'll have an inspector here first thing tomorrow morning." Marcus stepped forward, placing a proprietary hand on Victoria's shoulder. She fought every instinct to shrug it off. "Officer, what do we need to do tonight?" My wife is obviously in shock. The way he said, "my wife," made her stomach turn. Like she was property. Like the car had been property. Something he could destroy when it suited his purposes. A police officer took their statements separately. Marcus explained he'd arrived home from the office around 7, saw smoke billowing from the driveway, and immediately called emergency services. He was convincing. Victoria had to admit. He'd always been exceptional at lying. She was only now beginning to understand exactly how good Victoria gave her statement mechanically, her mind racing through the past 6 months, recontextualizing every strange moment. Every time Marcus had made snide comments about her success, every passive-aggressive remark about the Mustang being just a car or an impractical waste of garage space, every suggestion that she was showing off by driving it to business meetings. As firefighters finished extinguishing the flames, Victoria noticed movement down the street. A silver sedan was parked 4 houses away, engine running, exhaust visible in the cool evening air. She couldn't see through the tinted windows, but something made her step closer. Squinting through the smoky darkness, the driver's window rolled down just an inch, just enough for Victoria to see her. Amber Chun, Marcus's executive assistant. Their eyes met for one electric second. Then the window rolled up and the car pulled away quickly, tires squealing slightly in what might have been panic. Victoria's entire body went cold, despite the residual heat from the fire. Amber, here, watching. On a Thursday evening when she should have been anywhere else. On the same evening, Victoria's most precious possession burned to ashes. Did you see that car? She asked the officers standing nearby. See what, ma'am? The sedan had already disappeared around the corner, swallowed by darkness. Nothing. Never mind. But it wasn't nothing. Victoria's mind was connecting dots at lightning speed, forming a picture she'd been too trusting to see before. Marcus's late nights at the office, his sudden obsession with privacy, changing all his passwords, password protecting his phone, the way he'd been pressuring her to add his name to more of her business accounts, his sudden interest in Hayes Technologies' finances, asking detailed questions about revenue and assets that he'd never cared about before. The firefighters declared the scene safe, but warned them the car was a total loss. Most of the frame remained, a blackened skeleton of what had once been a beautiful machine. The leather interior was gone. The dashboard melted into abstract shapes. The trunk, where she kept her father's old toolbox and some of his engineering notebooks, was nothing but charred metal. We'll have an investigator here at 8 tomorrow morning, Captain Rodriguez told them. Don't touch anything until then. This is officially a potential crime scene until we rule out arson. Marcus's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. If Victoria hadn't been watching him like a hawk, she would have missed it. But she was watching. She was seeing everything now with new eyes. The way a prey animal suddenly recognizes a predator. The neighbors eventually dispersed. The emergency vehicles left. The street returned to its usual suburban quiet, except for the acrid smell of burnt rubber and melted plastic hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. Marcus tried to put his arm around her shoulders. Come inside. You need rest. I know how much that car meant to you, but it's just metal and rubber. We can get another classic car. What matters is we're safe. Just metal and rubber. Her father's legacy. The car he taught her to drive in, teaching her about engines and patience and perseverance. The vehicle she'd promised him on his deathbed she'd cherish forever. Just metal and rubber. Victoria looked at her husband, really looked at him, and felt the foundation of her marriage crack beneath her feet. She'd built a life with this man, trusted him with her business, her finances, her heart. And he was a stranger. Worse than a stranger. He was an enemy wearing the mask of a partner. I need to shower, she said quietly, pulling away from his touch. And I have some work calls to make. Work calls? Victoria, it's almost 9 at night, and you just experienced a trauma. Work can wait. There it was again, that edge in his voice when he mentioned her work. That resentment he'd been trying to hide, but now seeped through the cracks like poison. My company doesn't wait for convenient times, Marcus. You know that. She walked into their house, climbed the stairs to their bedroom, and locked herself in the bathroom. Only then did she let herself shake. Only then did she pull out her phone and start making notes. Times, dates, strange occurrences. She texted her best friend and business partner, Rachel, emergency. Car burned. Marcus involved. We'll explain tomorrow. Don't trust anyone. The response came back in seconds. I'm here. Whatever you need. On my way. Victoria looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Her face was streaked with soot and tears. She didn't remember crying. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled. But underneath the shock and grief, something else was forming. Something hard and determined and unbreakable. If Marcus thought burning her father's car would break her, he was about to learn a very expensive lesson. Victoria Hayes hadn't built a $50 million technology company by being weak or naive. Morning light revealed the full devastation. From the bedroom window, Victoria could see the charred remains of the Mustang, looking even worse in daylight. The midnight blue paint had bubbled away, exposing blackened metal underneath. It looked like a war casualty, a corpse of happier times. Marcus was already awake, which was unusual. He typically slept until his alarm forced him from bed. But this morning at 6:15, she could hear him downstairs, talking in hushed, urgent tones. Victoria moved silently to the door and opened it just a crack, holding her breath. I don't know what she suspects. No, she seemed shocked. Yes, I'm sure. Look, just stay away for a few days. Don't come to the office. Don't call me. I'll handle this. A pause. Then Marcus's voice again, lower, more intimate. Amber, I said I'd handle it, didn't I? Just trust me. Everything's going according to plan. Once the divorce goes through, we'll have enough to start over somewhere warm. Maybe the Caymans like we talked about. But you have to be patient. Divorce. The word hit Victoria like a physical blow. So he was planning to leave her. Not just leave, but strategically dismantle her life so he could run away with his assistant to a tropical paradise. Funded by Victoria's hard work and success, she pulled her phone from her nightstand and hit record, capturing the tail end of the conversation. I said I'd handle it. Stop worrying. You'll get your share. But Amber, for God's sake, don't do anything stupid like showing up here again. That was reckless. Victoria stopped recording and immediately forwarded the file to 3 different email addresses, then uploaded it to a secure cloud storage. Her father had taught her that lesson well. Never keep your ammunition in just one place. The doorbell rang at precisely 8 o'clock. The fire inspector had arrived, accompanied by 2 police detectives. Victoria dressed quickly in business casual, pulling her hair into a neat ponytail. She practiced her expression in the mirror. Shocked, grieving, but composed. Not too emotional. Not too controlled. Just right. Marcus was already at the door, playing the concerned husband. Officers, thank you for coming. My wife is still pretty shaken up, but she'll answer any questions you have. Mrs. Hayes, a woman in an inspector's uniform, extended her hand. I'm Fire Inspector Janet Reeves. I'll be examining your vehicle today. Do you have a few minutes to walk me through the timeline? Of course. Whatever you need. They walked outside together. The smell of burnt materials was even stronger in daylight, making Victoria's stomach turn. Inspector Reeves circled the car slowly, taking photographs, making detailed notes, kneeling to examine the ground. Mrs. Hayes, when was the last time you drove this vehicle? Sunday afternoon. I drove it to a client meeting, then parked it here around 4. Monday morning, I left for Boston. I just got back last night around 7:30. And the car stayed parked here the entire time you were gone? Yes, we have a 2-car garage, but I usually park the Mustang in the driveway. It's a beautiful car. I like seeing it. Her voice broke slightly on the present tense. Was a beautiful car. Inspector Reeves nodded, scribbling notes. Your husband was home during this time? Marcus stepped forward quickly. I was, but I didn't notice anything wrong with the car until I came home from work yesterday evening and saw the smoke. What time was that? Around 6:45. I work until 6, then it's about a 30-minute drive home. Inspector Reeves exchanged a meaningful glance with one of the police detectives. Mr. Hayes, can you tell me where you work? Hayes Technology. It's my wife's company. I'm the operations manager. Another note. Another exchanged glance. Victoria's stomach tightened. They were seeing something she wasn't seeing yet. Whatever it wasn't good for Marcus. The inspector moved to the driver's side and pointed to something on the concrete. Mrs. Hayes, do you see this pattern? Victoria looked down. There was a splash mark spreading out from beneath where the car door had been, staining the concrete in an unmistakable pattern. That's an accelerant pour pattern, Inspector Reeves said flatly. Someone doused this car in gasoline or lighter fluid before igniting it. This wasn't an electrical fire or mechanical failure. This was deliberate arson. The words hung in the morning air like an indictment. Marcus's face went pale. That's insane. Who would do something like that to us? That's what we need to find out. One of the detectives spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the weight of suspicion. Mr. Hayes, you said you discovered the fire around 6:45? That's right. And you called 911 immediately? Yes, of course. The detective consulted his phone. According to our records, the 911 call came in at 7:03. That's 18 minutes after you claim you discovered the fire. That's a long time to wait when something is burning, Mr. Hayes. Marcus blinked rapidly, his composure cracking. Maybe I got the time wrong. It all happened so fast. I was panicked. 18 minutes is a long time, the detective repeated. What were you doing during those 18 minutes? I tried to put it out first, with the garden hose. But it wasn't working, so then I called for help. Inspector Reeves walked over to the garden hose coiled neatly on its holder by the garage door. She touched the nozzle, examining it closely, then turned it on. Water flowed clear and steady. She turned it off and returned to Marcus, making another note. The hose is completely dry, Mr. Hayes. If you'd used it recently, there would still be moisture in the line and on the pavement where you sprayed. There's no water damage around the car except from our firefighters last night. Victoria watched her husband's face cycle through. Emotions, panic, anger, calculation. He was searching for an explanation, a lie that would work. But he was running out of options and oxygen. I must be confused. Like I said, I was in shock. Maybe I didn't use the hose. Maybe I just called 911 right away. Maybe, the detective said in a tone that clearly indicated he didn't believe a single word. Mr. Hayes, we're going to need you to come down to the station to give a formal statement. Am I under arrest? No, sir. Just a voluntary statement to clear up these timeline inconsistencies. Unless you'd prefer to have an attorney present? Marcus's eyes darted to Victoria, pleading silently for her to intervene, to defend him, to save him. She looked away, offering nothing. Let him drown. Let him panic. She was done throwing life preservers to a man who'd been trying to sink her. I don't need an attorney, Marcus said, his voice tight. I didn't do anything wrong. Then you won't mind coming with us now. As the detectives escorted Marcus to their unmarked car, Inspector Reeves turned to Victoria, her expression sympathetic but professional. Mrs. Hayes, is there anyone who might want to harm you or your property? A business competitor? A disgruntled employee? Anyone who's been threatening you? Victoria thought about the silver sedan down the street, about Amber watching the flames, about Marcus's phone conversation this morning, talking about divorce and the Caymans and starting over with someone else's money. Inspector Reeves Victoria said quietly, "I think I need to show you something." She pulled out her phone and played the recording from that morning. The inspector's face hardened as she listened to Marcus's voice discussing divorce plans and tropical getaways. "Mrs. Hayes, you need to get yourself a very good attorney. Today. Right now. I'm already working on it." After everyone left, taking Marcus with them for questioning, Victoria stood alone in her driveway looking at the destroyed car. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gerald Morton, her father's attorney and longtime family friend. "Diana Martinez, best divorce attorney in the state. I told her you'd call. Also, Victoria, I pulled your father's safety deposit box records. There's something you need to know about what was in that car. Come to my office. Today." Victoria's hands trembled as she replied, "On my way." Another text, this one from Rachel. 15 minutes out. "Don't talk to anyone. Don't let that man back in the house. Change the locks now." Victoria went inside and, for the first time in 6 years, truly looked at her home. The house she'd bought with her first major contract. The mortgage she'd paid. The renovations she'd funded. Her name on the deed. Her credit building the life they'd shared. Or rather, the life she'd built while Marcus had been systematically trying to dismantle it. She walked into Marcus's home office, a room she rarely entered because he'd always claimed he needed privacy for important work. Now, with him gone, she sat at his desk and opened his laptop. The password was still the same one he'd used for years. Her birthday? How sentimental. How calculated. The laptop opened to reveal a desktop cluttered with files that made Victoria's blood run cold with each click. Email folders labeled AC contained hundreds of messages to Amber Chun. Love letters, plans, explicit photos. Messages dating back 2 years. The affair had been going on for 2 years. Not 6 months like she'd suspected. But worse than the affair were the financial files. Spreadsheets tracking Hayes Technologies accounts. Documents showing money transfers Victoria had never authorized. Bank statements for accounts she didn't know existed. Marcus had been embezzling from her company for at least 18 months, moving money in small increments. 5,000 here. 10,000 there? Adding up to over $2 million. $2 million. Stolen from her own company by her own husband. Victoria kept clicking, her shock transforming into cold, focused fury. There were files detailing her personal assets, the value of her company, projections for what he'd get in a divorce, notes about community property laws. He'd been planning this for years. The slow theft, the affair, the eventual divorce where he'd positioned himself to take half of everything she'd built from nothing. She found a folder labeled Insurance Policies and opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were documents related to the Mustang. Marcus had taken out a separate insurance policy on the car 6 months ago. A policy Victoria knew nothing about. A policy worth $300,000 with Marcus listed as the sole beneficiary. He'd burned her father's car to collect insurance money. He'd destroyed her father's legacy for a payout. Victoria heard the front door open. Rachel's voice called out urgently. "Victoria? Where are you?" "Upstairs. Marcus's office." Rachel appeared in the doorway, took one look at Victoria's face and the laptop screen, and immediately understood. "What did you find?" "Everything. The affair. The embezzlement. The insurance fraud. He's been systematically destroying me for years while I was too busy building a company to notice." Rachel pulled up a chair and examined the laptop screen. As Victoria's business partner and fellow tech entrepreneur, she understood immediately what she was seeing. "Oh my God, Victoria. This is enough to send him to prison for a decade. I know. You need to call that attorney, right? Now. Today. This minute." Victoria pulled out her phone and dialed the number Gerald had sent. The voice that answered was sharp and professional. Martinez Law, how may I help you? My name is Victoria Hayes. Gerald Morton referred me to Attorney Martinez. I need to file for divorce immediately, today, and I need to press criminal charges against my husband for embezzlement, arson, and insurance fraud. There was a brief pause. Please hold. A moment later, a different voice came on the line. Stronger, more commanding. Mrs. Hayes, this is Diane Martinez. Gerald briefed me on your situation. How fast can you get to my office? 40 minutes. Make it 30. Bring everything you have. Documents, recordings, evidence. Every piece of proof you can carry. And Mrs. Hayes? Yes? Don't let your husband back in that house. Change the locks today. I'm texting you a locksmith I trust. He'll be at your house within the hour. Okay. And Victoria? Breathe. You're going to get through this. I've handled worse. I seriously doubt that, Victoria said, staring at the evidence of Marcus's betrayal spread across his laptop screen. You'd be surprised what people are capable of when money and ego collide. See you in 30 minutes. And bring that laptop. Victoria hung up and looked at Rachel. I need you to do something for me. Anything. Go to the office. Pull every financial record for the past 3 years. Look for any transactions Marcus approved. Any transfers, any new vendor accounts, any suspicious patterns. I need a complete picture of what he's stolen. I'm on it. Rachel stood, then paused. Victoria, I'm sorry. We work together every day. I should have noticed something. He fooled everyone. That's what makes sociopaths so dangerous. Victoria saved all the files from Marcus's laptop onto 3 separate flash drives. But I'm better at winning than he is at lying. After Rachel left, Victoria took one more look around Marcus's office. This room had always felt off limits, almost sacred somehow. Now she saw it for what it really was. The headquarters of his betrayal. The place where he plotted against her while she was downstairs making dinner, or working late on contracts that would benefit them both. Except there had never been a them both. There had only been him stealing from her, planning to destroy her, thinking he was clever enough to get away with it. She thought about the car burning, about Amber watching from down the street, about Marcus's satisfied face as he watched flames consume her father's legacy. He'd wanted to break her spirit, to remind her that no matter how successful she became, he could still hurt her in ways that mattered. But he'd miscalculated catastrophically. Because successful people, especially those who'd built something from nothing, knew how to take a loss and transform it into fuel. Every setback was data. Every betrayal was information. Every attack was an opportunity to strike back harder and smarter. Marcus had lit a fire last night, but not the one he'd intended. Victoria grabbed the laptop, the flash drives, and her phone. She had 30 minutes to get to Diana Martinez's office, and she intended to use every second of the drive to prepare for war. Marcus thought he was playing chess. He was about to discover he'd brought a board game to a battlefield. Diana Martinez's office occupied the top floor on a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The waiting area featured white leather chairs and abstract art that probably cost more than most people's. Cars. Expensive. Minimalist. Intimidating. Exactly what Victoria needed. A young associate led her to a conference room where Diana was waiting. The attorney was probably 50, with sharp eyes and silver hair pulled into an elegant twist. She wore a navy suit that screamed power and competence. She looked like someone who ate opposing counsel for breakfast and had courtrooms for lunch. Mrs. Hayes, Diana said, gesturing to a chair. Show me what you have. For the next 90 minutes, Victoria laid everything out. The recording of Marcus's phone call about divorce and the Caymans. the evidence from his laptop showing the affair and embezzlement, the fire inspector's preliminary report confirming arson, the bank statements proving systematic theft, the insurance fraud documentation. Everything. Diana took notes on a yellow legal pad, her expression never changing, revealing nothing. When Victoria finished, the attorney set down her pen and looked at her directly. You have enough evidence here to destroy him both criminally and civilly. But I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty. Okay. Double quotes. What do you want? Revenge? Justice? Your money back? To be done with him as quickly as possible? Because each of those goals requires a different strategy, and I need to know which war we're fighting. Victoria thought about it carefully. About Marcus's face as he watched her car burn. About the years of lies and calculated cruelty. About Amber smiling at company events while secretly planning to steal Victoria's life. About every time Marcus had criticized her success, her drive, her ambition, all while robbing her blind. I want him to understand exactly what he threw away, Victoria said quietly. I want every cent he stole from me back, with interest and penalties. I want him prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And I want to make absolutely certain he can never do this to anyone else again. Diana smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator spotting wounded prey. Good, she said. I can work with that. Over the next 3 weeks, Victoria's life became a careful balance of public composure and private warfare. Diana moved with ruthless efficiency, filing for divorce with an immediate restraining order, citing the arson and threatening behavior. Marcus was barred from coming within 500 feet of Victoria, her home or her business. He works for my company, Victoria had pointed out during their strategy session. Not anymore, Diana replied. We'll have security escort him out today. He's fired effective immediately. Do I have board approval for that? You own 70% of the company. You don't need board approval. The criminal investigation moved quickly. With Victoria's evidence, the district attorney's office opened cases for arson, embezzlement, insurance fraud, and forgery. Detectives found more evidence. Security footage showing Marcus purchasing gasoline and a container the afternoon before the fire. Text messages between Marcus and Amber, discussing the car problem and how destroying it would teach Victoria a lesson about priorities. But the real bombshell came from Gerald Morton 3 days after Victoria hired Diana. She met him at his law office downtown, the same office where her father had conducted business for 30 years. Victoria, Gerald said, spreading documents across his mahogany desk. When your father died, he left you everything. The house, his savings, his business assets, and the Mustang. What you didn't know, because I was instructed to keep it confidential until it became necessary, is what was hidden inside that car. Victoria's heart began to race. What do you mean, hidden? Your father was paranoid about keeping important documents safe. He didn't trust banks completely after the financial crisis. So he created a hidden compartment in the Mustang's trunk. Inside that compartment were original patent documents and engineering, notebooks for 3 separate technologies he'd invented in the 1980s. Patents for what? Gerald pulled out copies of patent filings. A revolutionary battery technology that's now used in most electric vehicles. A wireless charging system that became the industry standard. And a microprocessor design that's currently licensed by every major tech company in the world. Victoria stared at the documents, her mind struggling to process the implications. These patents, they're still valid? For another 7 years? And here's the critical part. Your father filed these patents, but he never properly commercialized them. Other companies have been using derivative versions of his technology, paying minimal licensing fees to patent trolls who claim to own improvements on the original designs. But with your father's original documentation, you can prove they need to license the foundational patents. The ones your father invented. How much are we talking about? Gerald leaned back in his chair. Conservative estimate? Back royalties plus ongoing licensing fees? Somewhere between $300 and $400 million. The number hit Victoria like a physical blow. $300 to $400 million. But the originals burned in the car. The physical documents burned, yes. But your father made me promise to keep digital backups. 20 years ago, we scanned everything and stored it in 3 separate secure locations. The patents exist in official USPTO records. What we have are your father's original engineering notebooks proving he was the true inventor, establishing priority and ownership. Victoria's hands began to shake. Marcus destroyed those documents. He destroyed the physical copies, yes, but he had no idea what he was really destroying. According to the timeline you've provided, Marcus asked you about your father's old notebooks several times over the past year. He knew about one patent, the one your father had mentioned in his will, but he had no idea about the other 2. He was looking for 1 payout, not 3. Victoria thought about that night. Marcus standing in the driveway, satisfied, thinking he'd destroyed something precious to hurt her. He'd been trying to cause emotional pain, maybe eliminate evidence that could complicate the divorce. He'd had absolutely no idea he was burning documents worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So Marcus destroyed the only physical evidence of a fortune he didn't know existed? Precisely. And because these patents belong to your father's estate, which passed to you before your marriage, they're your separate property. Marcus has no claim to them whatsoever, not even in a community property state. Victoria sat back, absorbing the cosmic irony. Marcus had spent years stealing from her, planning to take half her company, burning her car to hurt her emotionally. And in doing so, he destroyed evidence of a fortune that would have made his embezzlement look like pocket change. A fortune that was now entirely legally, solely hers. What do we do now? Now, Gerald said with grim satisfaction, we file patent infringement claims against every company that's been using your father's technologies without proper licensing. It'll take years to fully litigate, but we'll win. Your father's documentation is airtight. These companies will settle rather than fight and lose publicly. Over the next 6 months, Gerald and his team filed claims against 23 major technology companies. The legal papers made international headlines. Tech giants sued for patent infringement, appeared in every major business publication. Some companies tried to fight initially. Most settled quickly once they saw the ironclad evidence. The settlements started arriving. $60 million from one automotive company, $90 million from a tech giant, $130 million from a consortium of phone manufacturers. By the time the dust settled, Victoria's personal net worth had increased by $380 million. She was a billionaire. The news coverage was overwhelming. Forbes called her one of the youngest self-made female billionaires in technology. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature titled, "The Woman Who Turned Betrayal into Billions." Investors lined up to back Hayes Technologies' expansion. Her life changed overnight in ways both wonderful and terrifying. Through it all, Victoria stayed grounded. She upgraded her living situation, but reasonably. A nice penthouse downtown, not a mansion. She invested most of the money conservatively. She increased her charitable giving dramatically. And she started the foundation she'd been dreaming about. The James Hayes Foundation, named after her father, provided grants to young inventors and entrepreneurs from underrepresented backgrounds. Full funding for patent applications. Legal support for protecting intellectual property. Mentorship from successful business leaders. The foundation launched with a $60 million endowment. Applications flooded in immediately from brilliant minds who just needed a chance. The criminal trial took place 8 months after the fire. Victoria sat in the courtroom every single day, dressed impeccably, taking notes. Marcus was brought from jail each morning in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. He'd lost significant weight. His eyes were hollow. He looked like a man who'd finally realized the magnitude of his mistakes. The prosecution's case was devastating. They presented the security footage of Marcus purchasing gasoline, the text messages planning the arson, the embezzlement evidence showing systematic theft, the insurance fraud documentation. Amber Chun testified against him, having taken a plea deal in exchange for full cooperation. Mr. Hayes told me the car was insured for $300,000. Amber testified, her voice shaking. He said destroying it would hurt Victoria emotionally and give us money to start our new life. I didn't think about the consequences. I just wanted to be with him. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: arson, embezzlement, insurance fraud, wire fraud, forgery. At sentencing, the judge looked at Marcus with undisguised contempt. Mr. Hayes, you systematically betrayed the trust of your wife, who gave you opportunity and support. You stole from her company. You committed arson against her property. You attempted insurance fraud. And when caught, you showed no remorse, only anger at being held accountable. Marcus's attorney argued for leniency, but the judge wasn't interested. I'm sentencing you to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You will pay full restitution of all stolen funds plus 30% in penalties and damages. You are permanently barred from any contact with Mrs. Hayes. Do you understand? Marcus stood slowly. Your Honor, please. I made mistakes, but 12 years is less than you deserve, Mr. Hayes. You didn't just steal money. You tried to destroy a person's life out of jealousy and greed. You're fortunate. I can't sentence you to more. Bailiff, remove the defendant. As guards led Marcus away, he turned back one last time, his eyes finding Victoria in the courtroom. There was no anger in his gaze anymore, just hollow understanding of what he'd thrown away. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks later. Marcus signed everything from prison, agreeing to give Victoria full ownership of their marital assets. In return, she agreed not to pursue additional civil penalties beyond what the criminal court had ordered. Are you sure? Diana had asked. We could take him for everything. He has nothing left to take, Victoria replied. And I don't want to spend more years of my life connected to him in any way. I want it finished. 4 months after the trial concluded, Victoria received a letter from Marcus. It arrived through his attorney, since direct contact violated the restraining order. She almost threw it away unread, but something made her open it. The handwriting was Marcus's, but messier than she remembered. More desperate. Victoria. I heard about the patents and the settlements. I won't insult you by pretending I knew what I was destroying. I didn't. I was just angry that you had something I couldn't control or take from you. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know something. I'm sorry. Not sorry. I got caught. Sorry I did it at all. Truly, completely sorry. I was jealous. You were always smarter, more driven, more successful. I felt like I was drowning while you soared. I told myself I deserved compensation for living in your shadow. But I was wrong. You didn't put me in your shadow. I put myself there by being too weak and insecure to build my own light. Burning your father's car was the stupidest, cruelest thing I've ever done. Not because of the patents, I had no idea those existed, but because that car meant everything to you, and I destroyed it just to hurt you. That's who I'd become. Someone who hurt people because I was hurting. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to respond. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then. You deserve better. You deserved everything good that's happening for you now. I hope you're happy, Victoria." I genuinely hope that Marcus Victoria read the letter twice, then filed it away in a drawer. She didn't respond, didn't acknowledge it, didn't tell anyone about it. Marcus's apology, sincere or not, changed nothing. He'd made his choices. He'd faced appropriate consequences. And she'd move forward without him. But she did feel something she hadn't expected. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a release of the anger she'd been carrying. Marcus was no longer her villain. He was just a deeply flawed person who'd made catastrophic choices and would spend years paying for them. That wasn't her responsibility anymore. 2 years after the fire, Victoria stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the James Hayes Innovation Center. The 50,000-square-foot facility featured state-of-the-art laboratories, workspace for 200 entrepreneurs, legal support services, and mentorship programs. Everything her father never had access to, but should have. The first cohort of participants included 75 innovators from backgrounds that typically face barriers in the tech world: women, people of color, first-generation immigrants, college dropouts with brilliant ideas but no connections or capital, people with disabilities who'd been overlooked despite their talents. Today, they were all getting their chance. Victoria walked through the building one final time before the ceremony, watching young engineers test prototypes, software developers code solutions to real-world problems, a team developing sustainable energy technology, another group building assistive devices for people with mobility challenges. This was her father's legacy, properly honored. This was Marcus's betrayal, transformed into something meaningful. Rachel found her on the second floor, watching participants in a business planning workshop. "It's time." Everyone's waiting outside. The plaza was packed with press, donors, local politicians, and the 75 program participants. Victoria stepped to the podium, looking out at all the hopeful faces. "My father, James Hayes, was a brilliant inventor," she began. "He created technologies that changed the world. But he never got to see the full impact of his work. He died thinking his inventions were forgotten, his legacy unclear." She paused, gathering her thoughts. 2 years ago, someone tried to destroy evidence of my father's work. They burned a car that contained his engineering notebooks and documentation. They thought they were hurting me. They thought they were taking something irreplaceable. What they actually did was force me to dig deeper, to find backup documentation, to discover patents I didn't know existed, to uncover a legacy worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And in doing so, they inadvertently gave me the resources to build this center and honor my father's memory properly. Victoria gestured to the building behind her. "The James Hayes Innovation Center exists because someone tried to destroy my father's legacy and failed completely. It exists because betrayal taught me the value of resilience and the importance of protecting intellectual property and supporting the next generation of innovators." 2. The 75 participants we've accepted into this program. Your ideas matter. Your dreams matter. You matter. We're here to support you, fund you, connect you with mentors and resources, and help you build something lasting. Not because you need charity, but because you represent exactly what this world needs: fresh perspectives, brilliant minds, and the courage to create something new despite obstacles. Welcome to the James Hayes Innovation Center. Let's build the future together. The applause was thunderous. Participants rushed forward, sharing their stories, expressing gratitude. Victoria hugged strangers and listened to dreams and felt, for the first time in years, completely at peace with her path forward. That evening, Victoria attended a celebration dinner with her closest friends and colleagues. Rachel raised her glass for a toast. To Victoria, who faced hell with grace and walked out owning it. To justice, Diana Martinez added with a satisfied smile. To family legacies, Gerald Morton said, looking emotional. Your father would be extraordinarily proud of who you've become. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes as she looked around, the table at people who'd supported her through the darkest chapter of her life. Thank you. All of you. I couldn't have survived this without you. Later that night, alone in her penthouse overlooking the city, Victoria stood on her balcony thinking about the journey. From flames in her driveway to $1 billion net worth. From discovering betrayal to building genuine partnerships. From losing her father's car to honoring his entire legacy in ways he never could have imagined. Marcus was in prison, serving his 12-year sentence. Amber had disappeared after serving her reduced sentence, trying to rebuild her life somewhere people didn't know her story. And Victoria was here, living in a beautiful home, running a successful international company, operating a foundation that changed lives, building programs that inspired others. She'd taken the worst betrayal of her life and transformed it into fuel for unprecedented success and meaningful impact. Her phone buzzed with a text from someone unexpected. Dr. Ethan Park, a colleague she'd met at a tech conference 6 months ago. A brilliant engineer and genuinely kind person who treated her as an equal partner in conversations about innovation. And the future. Saw the news about the Innovation Center. Congratulations. You're changing the world. Coffee tomorrow to celebrate? Victoria smiled. Maybe she was finally ready to consider letting someone new into her life. Not rushing. Not forcing. Just remaining open to possibilities. Coffee sounds perfect. 10 o'clock? I'll be there. She set down her phone and looked out at the city lights, thinking about her father's favorite saying. The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire, Victoria. Remember that when life gets hard. Marcus had lit a fire 2 years ago, thinking it would destroy her. Instead, it had revealed exactly what she was made of. He tried to burn her down and ended up clearing away everything fake and weak in her life, leaving only what was real and unbreakable. She'd emerged as refined steel, strong enough to build an empire, flexible enough to adapt to challenges, valuable enough that the fire had only increased her worth in every way that mattered. Victoria raised her glass to the city, to the future, to the endless possibilities spreading out before her like an open road. Marcus had tried to take everything from her. Instead, he'd given her the greatest gift possible, the knowledge that she could survive anything, overcome anything, and build something beautiful from even the worst circumstances. The moral of the story is profound and multifaceted. True strength isn't measured by what we have, but by what we build after everything is taken from us. Betrayal, while devastating, can become the catalyst that reveals our authentic power and purpose. The people who try to destroy us often inadvertently free us from their limitations, clearing the path for us to become who we were always meant to be. Success isn't about revenge, it's about building a life so meaningful and impactful that those who wronged us become irrelevant to it. And sometimes, the worst thing that happens to us turns out to be the best thing, because it forces us to dig deeper, fight harder, and discover resources and strengths we never knew existed. The strongest steel truly is forged in the hottest fire.